Hey guys, Gambling CS here with another knife review. This is of the spyderco Superfly. Now I know some of y'all are thinking, hey, this is probably a spyderfly or a small fly. Well, it's not, sadly. As much as I'd like to have either of those, well, not really so much the small fly, but I'd like to have the spyderfly. This is not one of them. It is simply an imitator. It is a Superfly, a cheap $30 knife. It's a battle song. I actually am more into battle songs than I am regular knives, but that's just a recent development. Anyway, so this knife is rather handy. The reason I got it originally was so that when I do get a spyderfly, which I plan to get one of these days whenever one pops up, I'll be able to have a sheath that fits it, and I'll be used to the same fit and finish, or excuse me, the same design for when I'm flipping it, and if I ever actually have to use it as a tactical knife, which I doubt I will. This is kind of a backup thing, just in case. It's my entertainment when I'm bored, and it is kind of my EDC, as I said in my EDC update, but people do get kind of annoyed or don't look at me very, well, they don't exactly like the idea of me having a butterfly knife while I'm trying to cut open a box or something, so I generally go to other knives, but I think it's just rather stupid that they think that way. It's just, I mean, it's a knife. A knife's a knife. It doesn't change what kind of mechanism it has. It's a blade. It's steel or some kind of cutting. It's a wedge that cuts stuff. That's all it is. Anyway, so onto the knife. It's pretty basic. Now, I bought it from Knifezilla. It was one of my first online buys. It said ABS scales. They're not. They are actually cheap. I mean, they're like aluminum scales painted black. So that kind of surprised me. I didn't really care, you know, whatever. So what if it's not ABS scales? It doesn't bug me too much. And it's a little extra weight. I really don't care about weight. I'm running around with like 3 pounds a day, so this doesn't bug me. The blade, on the site said 420 steel. 420 steel. On here, if you could see it on this side, says 440 stainless. Now you might be wondering about those lines. Those are actually from the serrations I put, and I'll get back to that later. But for the standard stuff, I'll go to that first. Now this knife does have Torx screws or Torx bits on the pivot joints, which is really nice. However, everything else are hex bits, really cheap pressed hex bits. I've stripped several of these already from trying to tighten them so much because they're a cheap Chinese make and they don't stay tight even when I Loctite them. I've super glued, I've Loctited, I've pretty much done everything short of actually weld these together, and they still come loose. So these things are pretty much stripped from me using the hex or the Allen wrench, turning it. It is an odd shape, just an imitation of the spyderfly, like I said before. The spider holes, like is common for all spyderco knives. It is really nice because this knife is kind of interesting. It's just one of those oddball knives I really like. Tang pins, oh god, this construction is just horrible on this part. Tang pins actually move. I've taken these out before. I've tried super gluing them, and they do not stick. They just kind of stick there, and this is on both sides. It's just a cheap little knife. If you could hear that click. Yep, that's a tang pin. Alright, what else? Originally, with this knife on the blade, it did have the classic modified spear point blade that the spyderco spyderflies had. I had to reprofile this whole thing. It was a horrible knife. It was barely better than a butter knife, basically. I reprofiled it with a landscape sharpening kit and gave it a 17-degree edge, which held up relatively well. And I did that along the entire part, and then I got bored, tried the swedge on the back, sharpen that up, and that works out pretty well. It cuts and does thrust cuts a lot better now, but that's just beside the point. It kind of gets in the way when I'm flipping. I've got a lot more cuts in my hand. That's always a problem. Now onto the serrations. There is a custom knife maker known as Phil Hartsfield. He passed away last year. His son, though, took up the business, and his son was making knives with him for the past 30 years, so he still knows what he's doing. But the way they do their serrations is kind of like a chisel grind almost on one side, and I really like that, just kind of the design of it. It's kind of like some of Kershaw's serrations, kind of just the even W shape that goes along the line. Theirs are like that, except those kind of go from large and just kind of scale itself down as they go farther on along the blade. Mine, I did like 5mm increments, not very even as you could tell, but it was all done by hand. I did this with a what was supposed to be for a serration sharpener, the coarse stone that came with the kit, and it worked out actually pretty well. I have cut quite a few bit in cardboard and wood and whatnot, and it cuts relatively well. My hand, for instance, that's why I have duct tape on here. I was flipping around a little bit, and the serrations just caught along my finger, and it was a nice, neat cut, and then it started bleeding. Anyway, it is pretty fun. This is made by Tiger. It is in the U.S. That says ROC. There we go. That's Tiger. Let's pull out the magnifying glass. Kind of see Tiger USA on there. It came with a bead blasted finish. I really prefer bead blasted, even though rust resistance is kind of low on that, but that's just me. See the rest of it. It is sandwich construction. It is an open flow design with these pillars in here. Mine actually came as a manila style, which means that the latch. Actually, let me go grab the latch for you. It came with a latch and a pocket clip. We'll grab those. Okay, let me just find the bits. So they're in here, even better. Okay, so it came with what's called a hammer latch, which is kind of like a sideways T-latch. So instead of it so that the latch falls over and then has a kind of a crossbar right here holding onto the friction of these two sides, it has a pillar in there that you can see, and it hits that and kind of hooks onto that, kind of in a hammer shape. I'll pull the actual latch out, and this is what it looks like. It'll swing off this pivot right here and just kind of hit it and walk in. Now, unlike the Spyderco Spyderfly, it did lock both open and closed, which is really cool. I really did enjoy that. However, flipping it, this got annoying. But I really found out that I really like manila style butterflies now, because when this does close, and it does not have a lock gate on it, it's completely open. When it does close and hit down on the butterfly knife like this, and just fell out, it would normally hit on the swedge, which I really don't care about. You know, this was before I sharpened it. It would just hit on the swedge, and that didn't bug me. It was a cheap knife, cheap steel, and it didn't hit the blade, so I wouldn't have to sharpen the whole thing over again. It just hit the swedge, which didn't change anything. So that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. So now all my knives I'm probably going to get are going to be either spring latch or manila style, which I really enjoy. This knife is not centered, as you can see. It's closer to the safe handle, the semi-safe handle. Closer to that side. Now, right here you can see two holes. Kind of see it. The two holes that were for the pocket clip. It was not like the Spyderco one where it had a wired clip that could be on all 4 points. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cough. It was not like that. It was like a really cheesy, another sandblasted, crap-tastic pocket clip like this. Now, the fit and finish on this was horrible. It would tighten down, but it wouldn't tighten down enough, so it would still have a little wiggle room, so it'd still rub back and forth on the scales, which is why it has that line right there. And it just kind of interfered with the flipping itself, so I took that off as well. I tried modifying it so it'd be a little more higher up and would actually get a secure fit, but the screws stripped, and it just, there's so many bad Chinese parts in here. I can't go over all of them. It's just horrible in general. But, you know, for $20-30, that's kind of what you expect in a butterfly knife. This is the problem that I find with a lot of these things. There's no real middle ground. There used to be the Spyderfly, which was for about $85, then that got outlawed. And now there's the Bradley Kimaras, which, don't get me wrong, they're fantastic knives. I'm just not a big fan of them because I don't like the design of the handles. They're too square for my taste. I do a lot of spins. I mean, I've heard they get great grip, which is fantastic. I like that. The blades are, in my opinion, not as proportionate to the handles as I would like. Like when this knife is completely open, you know, it's about a 1-to-1 ratio. pretty much. It's just like a little like half-inch, and that's just this little part. And I mean that I really like this. I like the design of this blade, this recurve, which is a pain, by the way, to sharpen this. I'll get into that a bit later. Anyway, I really like the design and the look of this blade and the functionality of it, and I don't really care for the Kimuras all that much. But that's just me. You know, get one of your own, and you'll see that it is a fantastic butterfly knife, and you can make your own opinions on it. But after that, there's really no anything bigger than that. There's then you get into Benchmade with their 42, 32 Morpho, 53, the Bradley Mayhem, some Microtech Dragonflies if you could find them. It starts with a T. I can't remember it, but just the higher end ones. I go from $180 plus into that range, and then you get into customs, and I mean that's just really expensive. If you want to get like a cheap knife, you don't really have many options. You've got the cheap ones, which will fall apart in front of you for like a week or two, and Bear and Sons knives. Is actually relatively decent. They use pin construction, which means instead of screws, it's a pin that goes through and is smashed on both sides, so you can't really tighten it or loosen it. It's stuck in there, but it takes maintenance out completely out of the equation, which is fantastic. I really do enjoy that. I was planning to get one whenever I get some more cash flow going in. I am getting a package pretty soon that pretty much took over my my money for the next couple of months. But anyway. So that is the Spyderco Superfly. Very well, not really a Spyderco. It's the Tiger Superfly. Oh, God. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed and have a nice day.